So there are three central components to somatic transformation. And I'm going to talk a little bit inside of here about just the methodology and how it actually works to give you a better understanding. So the first three components I'm going to talk about are somatic awareness, somatic practices, and somatic opening. And I'm going to be using a term called shape. And we use it a little bit differently than you might traditionally think about it. When we talk about someone's shape, we're really talking about what is embodied in someone. And we consider shape people's history and lived experience that have become kind of habits, people's emotions and emotional range, their thinking and belief systems, and also the actions that they take and don't take. And somatics invites us to look through a very different perspective at how human beings change. So let me start with somatic awareness. One of the things you'll hear in the field of somatics often is, what are you noticing in your sensations? And what is it that you feel in your body? And while at first you're like, why does that matter? One of the reasons that it matters is by dropping our attention into our whole organism. So not just our thinking mind, but really our entire body, our whole organism, we actually get in contact with a bunch more information. One of the ways that neuroscience and current biology is starting to look at the human body is that we actually have three brains. We have this brain and our thinking brain. We have the heart as a second brain, and then our instinctual brain, or our guts, as a third brain. When we only listen to our thinking brain, we're missing a whole bunch of information that we gather through the rest of our nervous system and organism. So when we're saying somatic awareness and increase your somatic awareness, one of the first things we'll do in a somatic path or somatic methodology is ask you to pay attention to and become more aware of the information that's coming in and through your whole psychobiology or your whole body. The second circle that I want to talk about is somatic practices. So one of the phrases that we use in Strozzi somatics is, we are what we practice. We become what we practice. We're always practicing something. And is what you're practicing aligned with who you want to become, with the type of leader that you want to be, with the contribution you want to make in the world? And naturally, for most of us, there's a gap. Yeah. So we use many different practices, somatic practices, to engage change in a person. So an example is a centering practice, or we have a practice that'll kind of elicit your more triggered response and then teach you how to work with it. We have a practice that's about really extending your presence and your focus and your action into the future that you want to create, called the extension practice. And each of these are a combination of training our nervous system by making the practice physicalized, as well as engaging why it's meaningful to extend toward that future, as well as really framing and tracking intellectually our desire or our intent in doing that. So it's not like going to gym class, somatic practices. In fact, it's really getting away from that more objectified understanding of the body, like our body is what carries us to our next meeting. And it's much more understanding the body or the whole psychobiology as a source of intelligence, and also as the place that holds our history, and also what we need to transform if our transformation is going to be sustainable. So somatic practices, are your practices aligned with what it is you most care about and with who you want to be? So the third circle in this methodology is called somatic opening. And in some ways, this might be the trickiest piece to understand when someone is new to somatics. So what somatic opening is being able to transform from one shape. And remember how I talked about shape. This is like the body, the self, how we relate our belief systems, right? From one embodied shape to a different embodied shape that's more congruent and aligned with what you most care about. So again, somatics understands learning and change in a very different way. It's not necessarily a thought down process, but rather a transformation of the whole shape. So when we talk about somatic opening, we talk about that we listen to this shape, what it's taking care of for that person, and then work literally with transforming and opening and shifting the musculature, the neuronal pathways, the emotional states, and the commitment, right, that someone is looking at embodying. So shifting from a shape that has less choice and doesn't naturally take the actions that you want to take, going through a somatic opening process to actually literally a different embodied shape. So that same person could become someone that says, oh, I know what I care about in the world, and I actually have transformed myself so that I can bring my voice and my actions and my intention toward what I care about. Yeah. That's what makes the change sustainable, right? That's what makes the change sustainable. Thoughts alone tend to lose out under pressure. Yeah. A new thought will only take us so far. A new set of distinctions or what we learned out of a book will only take us so far. And when the pressure comes on, what is most deeply practiced in us or what's most deeply embodied is what will come forward. So through somatic opening work, this third circle, it's almost like we're unpacking that and helping to deconstruct those patterns and then helping to practice in a new shape. So as you can see in our lovely chart, that somatic awareness, somatic practices, and somatic opening are inside of two wider circles. And I just want to take a moment and explain those because that'll help us understand how somatic transformation works. So the next circle out is called social context. And why that's there is because we're always living inside of and operating inside of a social context. And, usually kind of the farther away that is from our lived experience, the harder it is to notice. But what I mean by social context is there's certain social beliefs and practices that we live inside of all the time. So just for an example, inside of the United States, we have an economic system of capitalism. We live inside of that and operate inside of that every day and don't really notice how it shapes us or how it opens or limits our possibilities, unless you've maybe studied as an economist. The other thing is we live inside of a democracy, but it's a particular type of democracy. That shapes our expectations, how we think about the future, how we understand the past. So when we're looking at transformation as practitioners or teachers or coaches, we're always noticing how is the social context embodied in this person or this organization and either a part of the solution or a part of the problem, right? Just recognizing that we're not just individuals, we're actually much more of a collective soma than we are just individual somas.